Shalom, all praises, blessings, glories, and honors to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone, who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy, to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed line of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, and Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying and informative. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 5. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, an evil, and only evil, behold, is come. An end is come. The end is come. It watcheth for thee. Behold, it is come. Verse 25. Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 26. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, and counsel from the ancients. In the news, from the CNN World, nearly 220 million people in Pakistan without power after countrywide outage. A nationwide power outage in Pakistan left nearly 220 million people without electricity on Monday, threatening to cause havoc in the South Asian nation already grappling with fuel shortages in the winter months. The country's Ministry of Energy said in a statement, the country's national grid went down at 7:34 a.m. local time, causing a widespread breakdown in the power system, according to initial reports. System maintenance work is progressing rapidly, the statement added. A limited number of grids in the capital Islamabad and the city of Peshawar have had power restored, the ministry said. It is unclear how long the outage will last, and efforts are underway to restore power to various parts of the country. In the city of Quetta, in Pakistan's southwest Balochistan province, the outage has affected all aspects of daily life, including hospitals, markets, and households. Due to unavailability of generators, services are affected in health centers in suburbs of Quetta City. The director of Balochistan's health department, Dr. Imran Sarakun, told CNN. Zahir, the owner of a clothing shop in Quetta, said they have no backup and have been waiting for the electricity to be restored for hours. The whole market of Jinnah Road is practically shut, as without electricity, customers do not turn to shops, he said. The outage comes as the country's fragile economy continues to struggle with multiple challenges, including a severe energy crisis. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif ordered all federal departments to reduce their energy consumption by 30%, while his government ordered all markets to close by 8:30 p.m. and restaurants by 10 p.m. The decision to reduce energy usage came as Pakistan announced its foreign exchange reserves had dwindled to alarmingly low levels. In December, the country's total liquid foreign exchange reserves stood at 11.7 billion, which is half the amount it held the start of last year, according to the central bank. Monday's power outage in Pakistan's most widespread power shutdown since 2021, when the nation plunged into darkness for hours after a sudden plunge in the frequency in the power transmission system. And it would be no surprise if this was somehow due to some form of, quote, cyber attack, end quote, because this was one of the things that were spoken about at the World Economic Forum. Okay, this is just a foreshadowing of what is to come here in the US and also throughout various parts of the world, because they have an agenda and they create the chaos to then cause the people to beg for the solution, and then they bring in the solution. Order out of chaos, also known as Hegelian dialect. This concludes the article. In other news, why is Britain's health service a much-loved national treasure falling apart? So, Britain's health sector, once a much-loved national treasure, is decaying. And not just in Britain, but also here in America, Babylon the Great. The worms spread under thee, as it is written. Israel's democracy on the brink amid Supreme Court shutdown with Netanyahu. Let's read some of this article. Israel's highest court this week ordered Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to fire a key ally, a dramatic move amid an unprecedented confrontation between his government and the judiciary. The High Court ruled 10-1 on Wednesday that it was unreasonable for Aryeh Deri, leader of the Sephardic ultra-Orthodox party, Shas, to serve as a minister. He was appointed Interior and Health Minister just 3 weeks ahead of the ruling. But so far, Netanyahu has not taken any action as political tensions mount. Israel media reported Friday Derby and Netanyahu are in the midst of negotiations over the situation. Derby has several convictions on his record, most recently on tax charges. Last year, he struck a plea bargain with the courts, which saw him serve a suspended sentence after he resigned from parliament and pledged not to return to public office. So this is not much of any relevance, so I will conclude reading the article there and move on to the next. He beheaded his wife in Iran. His prison sentence, 8 years and 2 months. Armed men kidnapped 50 women and girls foraging for food in Burkina Faso. Worshippers killed as bomb detonates during DRC church service. Uganda declares end of Ebola outbreak. 40 dead, many injured in Senegal bus crash, president says. Peru's president calls for dialogue after more than 30 injured in nationwide protests. So the Lord is bringing nothing more than death, destruction, and judgments upon people across the globe. Peru's crisis is a cautionary tale for democracies. Brazil's security falling on January 8 draw growing scrutiny. Peru extends state of emergency amid deadly protests. And so now let's move on to business. Here's what will happen to the economy as the debt ceiling drama deepens. After the United States hit its debt ceiling on Thursday, Treasury Department is now undertaking extraordinary measures to keep paying the government's bill. The fall could be catastrophic, causing irreplaceable harm to the U.S. economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has warned. Now, I did a lesson on this yesterday, but in case, or for those that had missed it, I'll just allow them to play this video to bring the information here as well.
Good morning, everyone.
What happened on Capitol Hill last week?
Those are migrants sleeping on the street of El Paso.
It is being called Brazil's January 6th.
CNN This Morning, weekdays at 6 Eastern.
The debt limit, China, Africa, and inflation. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen talked to Chris John earlier about all of this from an exclusive interview in Senegal.
Secretary Janet Yellen, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
We're going to get to your meeting and your trip and your speech in Africa in a moment. But first, I want to ask you about something else really top of your mind, and that is the debt ceiling. You informed Congress that the debt ceiling has been reached and that you have to employ extraordinary measures to keep the whole thing going. How long can you do that for? What kind of extraordinary measures?
Well, extraordinary measures involve things like the Civil Service Trust Fund and investments that we make in government securities for employees in the government-funded programs. And I indicated in my letter to Congress that we feel confident they can last until early June. But beyond that, there's no guarantee. The actual date at which we would no longer be able to use these measures is quite uncertain, but it could conceivably come as early June.
Okay, so I want to just quote that letter that you are referring to just a little bit. Failure to meet the government's obligations would cause irreparable harm to the United States economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability. So, in brief, what kind of irreparable harm, and particularly for American households, how would average American households experience this?
The United States is a country that since 1789 has always paid all of its bills. And the knowledge that the U.S. government can be trusted and counted on to do that underlies the foundations really of the entire global financial system. U.S. Treasury securities are the safest investment on the planet, and we would certainly experience at a minimum a downgrading of our debt. If that happened, our borrowing costs would increase, and every American would see that their borrowing costs would increase as well. On top of that, a failure to make payments that are due, whether it's to bondholders or to Social Security recipients or to our military, would undoubtedly cause a recession in the U.S. economy and could cause a global financial crisis. It would certainly undermine the role of the dollar as a reserve currency that is used in transactions all over the world. And many people would lose their jobs, and certainly their borrowing costs would rise.
Gosh, I mean, to me, and
not just people, but also businesses. And the reason why many would lose their jobs, because businesses that rely on liabilities won't be able to borrow really any money to then take that money, make money to pay that money back, and then keep the spread. It'll be too expensive for them to do so, so they'll have to fire a lot of employees in order to cover costs and maintain their businesses, their brands.
I'm a layperson when it comes to the economy. That sounds like an unmitigated disaster. You believe, you just told me, that you think some resolution can be found. The Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, also believes that some resolution can be found. But you do have what some have termed the flamethrowers on the extreme wing of the Republican Party, particularly in the House, and they are sticking quite firmly to what they say they've promised the people. They claim they have a mandate to get control of reckless spending. Do you believe that that's what's happening here, that there is reckless spending, that unless somehow you get that under control, this disaster that you've just outlined will unfold?
The debt ceiling is about making sure that we can pay our bills that we have already incurred for spending that has been authorized by Congress. So it's not about seeking the right to engage in additional spending. It is simply about paying bills Congress has already authorized. And Congresses in the past have always acted to raise the debt ceiling to make sure that we can pay our bills. This is something we can't negotiate over or bargain about. America has to be a reliable borrower that pays all the bills that come due on time. And Congress needs to find a way to get this done, and always has in the past.
Indeed, always has in the past.
Where I will stop this video. I will leave it in the description box of the lesson, Lord's willing. So, in summary, America is at risk of defaulting for the second time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or the first time in history of its debt, its bill, right? House GOP keeps up attacks, on IRS with bills to abolish the agency. So they plan on abolishing the IRS. In summary, I will also leave that in the description box of the lesson. The U.S. has reached its debt limit. What comes next is predictable. Now this is a shorter video, about a minute. I'll also play this as well to comment the prior video.
What's it like to hear from the people actually living the headlines? I'm Audie Cornish. My new CNN podcast will talk to the people behind the trending stories.
I've got a lot of questions.
The Assignment with Audie Cornish. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
We'd like to get a debt ceiling done in this work period.
So when it comes to the debt ceiling, it should not be used or never be a matter of political brinksmanship.
It's really up to Congress to raise the debt ceiling.
The debt ceiling, the eternal Washington food fight. So what is it, and why is it so contentious? The debt ceiling is the legal limit set by Congress on how much money America can borrow. Because the U.S. spends more than it takes in, it borrows to make up the difference. The debt ceiling caps how much. Problem is, it's not enough. So every once in a while, Congress needs to raise it. If it doesn't, the Treasury Department won't be able to pay all the country's bills in full and on time. Now, the Treasury does have a little wiggle room before it gets to that point, what it calls extraordinary measures to move money around. But eventually, the accounting tricks run out and there's no more avoiding the debt ceiling. That's when the fireworks usually break out.
Our debt is out of control. I mean, we're talking about over $30 trillion.
Me, I get rid of the debt ceiling altogether.
Right.
It serves no function except to create leverage.
Look, they're difficult political times. Nobody likes them, but they are necessary evils in a sense because it's the only time that you can actually negotiate ways to get our budget under control.
Now, many say raising the debt ceiling is just a license to spend more money and grow the debt. But it's not really. Raising the debt ceiling just lets Treasury pay the bills America already owes.
There's nothing to do with any new spending.
If Congress really wants to clamp down on debt, it has to do it a lot earlier, like before passing spending bills or tax cuts, both of which can add to deficits. Failing to raise the debt ceiling won't keep a lid on debt. It just risks the U.S. defaulting on its obligations, something that could forever stain America's global reputation.
That concludes the video, which summarizes this article that is basically a compliment onto the prior one that we just seen. Okay, now this will be enough of CNN. Now let's go to the RT. Russia to ban oil resales under Western price cap, media. Domestic oil exporters will reportedly have to make sure buyers don't use the mechanism for resale. Russian exporters may soon be forbidden from selling oil to buyers under the Western price cap mechanism. The Kommersant news outlet reported, citing government sources. According to the report, the Ministry of Energy has prepared a draft decree obliging Russian legal entities and individuals to avoid Western mandated oil price limit provisions in their contracts with foreign buyers. They will also have to ensure that these buyers, including traders and agents, comply with this requirement for the further resale of Russian oil. The contracts will also have to pass inspection at the Federal Customs Service. If the agency finds any violations, in particular any mention of the price cap, it may ban the export of the products specified in the contracts. The draft document is yet to be approved by the government, sources told the news outlet. The Ministry of Energy has so far declined to comment on the report. The price cap of Russian oil, introduced by the G7, EU, and Australia, came into force on December 5th. It bans Western companies from providing insurance and other services to ship transporting Russian oil unless the cargo is purchased at or below $60 per barrel. The cap may be revised in March, as Russian oil is currently trading below this level. On February the 5th, the Western Coalition will also introduce a price cap on Russian petroleum products. However, its details are still being discussed. Russia has been opposed to the price cap initiative from the start. Last month, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree banning the supply of Russian oil and oil products to foreign buyers that directly or indirectly mention the cap in their contracts. The ban will be effective for 5 months from February the 1st to July the 1st, 2023. The Kremlin specified that the decree also applies the contract signed prior to February the 1st if they mention the price cap. This concludes the article. So keep an eye on energy around and between those dates. Netherlands to shut down EU's largest gas field. U.S. cracking down on egg smuggling. Why? Because of inflation. So I will conclude here and end in rereading the scriptures. I'll leave the link, Lord's willing, in the description box of this lesson. Lord's willing was edifying and informative. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 25. Again it reads, destruction cometh. So when destruction comes in the form of Jacob's trouble through the four kinds which the Lord will appoint over 2/3 of the nation of Israel, according to Jeremiah chapter 15, people will attempt to seek peace, and there shall be none. And they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. And when they're going to be promised peace, according to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3, that is when destruction which cometh will come suddenly upon them. Okay, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape, because there shall be none. There shall be no peace to seek in the presence and during the days of destruction. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor, bad news after bad news. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priests and counsel from the ancients. So the false prophets that our people look up to, such as T.D. Fakes, Creflo Dollar, T.D. Fakes' daughter, because she's taking over for him, Joel Osteen, the false leaders of our people, like Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, and all these different people, they won't have the answers. Okay? Which will only cause our people to slide even deeper into destruction. Because Scripture says that wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. Of whose times? The elect. Okay, the strength of salvation, the fear of the Lord is his treasure, is an elect man's treasure. So with that, I will conclude this lesson. Lord's willing was edifying and informative. Until the next Lord's willing, I say shalom to the elect.